Hello, and welcome to Postcards from Palisade, the podcast that's all about the people and places that make this slice of Western Colorado wonderful. I'm your host, Lisa McNamara. Today I'm talking to Danny Tebbenkamp, the owner of Paddleboard Adventure Company. Keep listening to learn about the fun and unique events Danny and his team host. Paddleboard yoga or a community float, anyone? Find out what airboarding is, and hear why Palisade is where Danny wants to be. Strap on your life jacket and remember the warmth of summer on this early spring day. Let's float down the river with Paddleboard Adventure Company. Thanks so much for spending some time with me today.
My name is Danny Tebbenkamp. Our business is Paddleboard Adventure Company. We do paddleboard rentals as well as ducky rentals and tube rentals for the river and lake. We also do lessons for those who want to learn how to paddleboard, whether flat water or if they want to get on the river and do river paddleboarding, we do that. And then we just do tours as well. People want to get on the river and just, basically we just have, we call it the sub-squatch, so we do tours on that where people get on one big board together and we just take them down the river, or we do e-bikes as well, e-bike rentals and e-bike wine tours, which have become quite popular.
And where are you located?
We have a couple locations, but we started in Steamboat Springs. We have a shop there, and then we have a kiosk at Pearl Lake State Park up near Steamboat, and then we have our Palisade location.
How long have you been here in Palisade?
This will be our third season, so 2021, yes. Think about that. Is that right? Yes, that is right.
That was your first season. And why did you decide to expand over to Palisade?
Well, it's kind of not a long story, but the short of it is we've been in Steamboat for a while, just kind of getting over the cold and the snow, and we had a buddy who honestly wanted to move from the Front Range for a certain number of reasons, and we were looking to kind of just be around him more as well, and we had some friends here also in Palisade, and we're like, well, if he's moving to Palisade and we want to get out of the snow, and we have other friends out here, we got great access to rivers out here, we decided to just kind of start looking into it and searching. We came across a house here. So we bought a house here because we wanted to be local. We wanted to eventually be local and live here. But, 6 months after we bought, our buddy reached out to us and said, hey, we have a space that's for rent. Do you want to rent paddleboards out of it? And so that kind of began the story of like, oh, well, if we're going to live in Palisade, we might as well have like a little business here too. It'll just expand our paddleboard company.
So what made you originally decide to open your own business, and specifically this business, so gear rental and tours and things like that?
Well, I've always been an entrepreneur. I have another company back in Steamboat, and the company is a great company, but it's not an exciting company. It didn't really feed my adventure spirit. So back in 2009, I decided to branch out and do something that was more down the vein of what I wanted to do, which is back in 2009, we did wakeboard, wake surf lessons. We did backcountry, what was called airboarding trips. We did snow kiting, a bunch of crazy things. And a couple of them took off. A couple of them met, just limitations with whether permits or insurance or competition. So back in 2009, I was kind of toying with paddleboarding because I had seen a guy doing it on a river, and I was like, oh, I want to do that. So I started in 2009 just kind of doing it on my own in the river and lakes. And then in 2012, I just changed my company to Paddleboard Adventure, or Steamboat Paddleboard Adventures, because we were just in Steamboat and we just did solely paddleboards back in 2012. And I just started from there, just kind of expanding out and growing my fleet. And just at that time, it was like the new and hot thing. Well, actually, at that time, it was still kind of, people were like, what are you doing on a river with that thing? But so that's kind of the start of it.
It was more of like a flat water thing.
Yeah, it was a flat water thing, or even ocean thing.
New.
Yeah.
Before we go forward, airboarding and
snow kiting. Yeah.
What is airboarding?
Airboarding, it's really fun.
Sounds
So we take people by snowmobile into the backcountry, and they're inflatable like sleds that you ride face first, kind of like a boogie board. And they have molded runners, so you can actually carve through the powder, and you can get some good speed. And it was actually quite popular. I had people come back every year to do it, and then eventually insurance and permits were just a pain and not worth it. But it was fun for a couple of years there doing it. But it's a great way to enjoy the snow if you don't want to, or alternative way if you don't want to always snowboard or ski or.
Right. And so then I'm imagining that snow kiting is that like kiteboarding but with a snowboard.
Yeah,
That
just
sounds wild.
what they do in the ocean, but doing it on the snow. Yeah.
Ooh.
That
So this
was-
is like a little bit tamer now.
Yes. Well, some of the whitewater I wouldn't call tame, but yeah, around here it's there's not, unless you're going out to Westwater and running those big Class 3 rapids. It's mostly tame around here, so which is what most people want, and that's what we're going to offer.
So the other thing that I think is really interesting about what you do here is that you have a bar and shop. What made you decide to add on a bar?
Well, it's kind of been a dream of mine to have a bar, but I didn't really just want a bar, and so I think it's a great marriage of, we're just an après bar, meaning that we're just a place you land after the day's activity. And après means after an event or after an activity, and so we think it's just really cool to have a space when people come back from whatever adventure, whether they've rented from us or done an activity with us, or whether they're just biking by or hiking by or done with a hike somewhere or a bike ride somewhere, and they can sit down, belly up at the bar and tell a story. And I feel like having a drink in hand is probably the best way to do it. So it's just a cool marriage of the two. I want to hear what they experienced. If I didn't take them out, I want to know, well, how was it out there? And we'll have a beer while you're telling me that. Sorry, is that I can unplug that thing.
It is pretty loud.
Let me unplug it. I think it's my cooler. Yeah, no, it's just
Okay.
Oh, there you go. That's it too. That's just my kegger air. Okay. Where do we go back and say all that again? Anyway, it's just a cool marriage of having a place for people to land after their, paddleboarding or, biking. Whether they rent from us or do an activity with us, it doesn't really matter. It's just kind of cool to have a place after the day's activity to land. It's really big in the ski industry, and so we just kind of brought it to the paddleboard industry, where you come here and have a drink and tell us your story from the day, and because I've always hated it when people would rent something, they would just come and drop their gear and leave. Like, oh, I don't even know. I try and talk with them, but they want to get on and have a drink somewhere. I'm like, well, shoot, now I can provide that.
I think it's the best kept little secret bar in town too.
Thank
It's such a welcoming space, and you've got board games laid out on the tables and really good pricing. And yeah.
Thank you.
What about the name? So the sneak line. It's probably some term that I just don't know.
No, yeah, it's intentional to have it kind of unknown. It's river slang. As you're scouting a rapid to run it via raft or paddleboard or whatever, you just have to see what's the best way through. And sometimes it's, going through the meat of it. We call that punching the meat. And sometimes it's called sneaking by it. It's a sneak line. There's sometimes in big rapids that might have a consequence if you hit the big wave. You're like, oh, I need to get around that. And you just take the sneak line around it to keep yourself safe, or to keep maybe people on the raft that don't want to get super wet or get flipped. So yeah, that's just it's a cool little melding of, I think that's the right word, melding of the word, melding. That does not sound right. Anyway. And then also someone had said, well, it's actually kind of cool. Who knew nothing about it being a river thing, so you're kind of like off the beaten path. So like to get here, you kind of have to take the sneak line to get, because people don't know where we're at.
That's good.
So yeah, I like that too. I didn't think about that when we made the name.
What's the biggest challenge of running your own business?
Well, currently it's just staffing. I think most people probably would agree with that. It's just, there's a lot of places I could expand and do this model elsewhere, but I just don't have the personnel. And, Palisade, I do have a great manager, and I have a couple returning staff year to year, so that's helpful. There's still a couple of holes to plug, but on Steamboat, once the summer hits, I can rarely get down here because I'm so busy in Steamboat, because up there it's hard to find people to work, more so than Palisade. So that's one of the biggest challenges. The other thing is being spread between 3 locations and trying to give my equal time to all of them, and making sure the locals and my employees know that I care, that I'm not a distant owner who just doesn't care. That could be a lot of time travel and a lot of extra longer days if I'm traveling from one place to the other. I think those are the 2 challenges. I mean, and then just making sure the books are you're in the black most end of seasons and not in the red, because then you're. I feel like with Palisade we're still in our 3rd year, so this year should hopefully get us over the top more so. And Steamboat and Pearl Lake have a little more history and momentum, so they do a little better. But yeah, that's what it is. It's part of the business, or part of the growing pains.
Mm-hmm. What's the best part about it?
Oh man, I think just getting customers, meeting people, and then getting those people out on the water to do something they've never done before, or just to have an experience with family and friends. To know that we're providing a service that people are getting to do things that they haven't done, but this is kind of a cool industry where, it's about the people, and then it's really cool when you get good employees. I have a few in Steamboat and a couple here that just come back year after year, and those are fun connections.
What I think is really cool about what y'all do is that it's not just about gear rental. Like, you have a lot of really fun events, and even the rentals that you do are wild. Like the Sub Squatch.
Yeah.
I'm kind of obsessed with that. So can you describe what it is a little bit?
Yeah, so Sub Squatch, it's a big paddleboard. So it's about 15 feet in length and about 8 feet wide, I think. Don't quote me on that, but we usually put 6 people on there with a guide. It could be less than 6. If we're not floating down the river, just sitting on the lake, I'll cram as many people on there as want to go, and they can just have fun on it. Like, we rent a big one at Pearl Lake, and it's a great little party barge for wedding parties or kids. It's like it's a great babysitter for parents. Like, hey, I want to put all 10 of my kids on this board and push them out in the lake, and I can sit on the shore and not be annoyed. That's because if you're all on your own paddleboard or your own ducky, you're not, you might be socializing a little bit as you're floating down the river, but people can kind of like just go off and do their own thing in that situation. But on Sub Squatch, you're all stuck together. Yeah, and so this year I'm excited. We have 2 new. Unfortunately, the one we had the last 2 years is getting retired. It's just so beat up. But we're bringing in 2 new ones that I don't know if they'll hold as many people, but I think there'll be 4 people with a guide. But you can get both of them and we could dock them together. But yeah, the Sub Squatch is just a unique. Yeah, it gets everyone by surprise. What is that?
Do you include a guide just because it's so big to manage on the river? Yeah.
Yeah, just for protection of the people on the Sub Squatch, and also just for protection of the Sub Squatch. It's they're not cheap, so we just like to have the managed by a guide. And
makes sense. Well, it makes it a cooler experience too,
yes.
Because then people just get to float, and it's totally unique.
Right.
So that's cool. And then something like Sup Yoga, it just completely blows my mind. Like, I can't do yoga on ground. And there's like a picture of somebody on your website standing on their head on a paddleboard.
Oh gosh, yeah.
How does that even work?
Well, yeah, the headstands, that's not for everyone. That's really only the yogis it's probably not something, we never have people do those things because that's not what we're trying to land. But yeah, I think it's interesting. We get that question all the time. You can't do it on the land. I was like, well, the worst case on water, you're going to fall in the water. But our instructors aren't going to, it's very basic yoga on the paddleboard. And it's amazing even just being on a paddleboard and doing some of the minor things or the yoga moves. You get off the board and you just feel energized. Your core's worked out. You'll feel it the next day, and it's just a fun way to get out of a sweaty studio, crowded studio, and get an open air and fresh air. And like I said, worst case you're going to get wet, as I would tell people.
And so, are you going to be offering those classes again this year?
We have 3 on the calendar right now. We call it Float and Flow. So we'll do yoga on flat water, and then we'll get on the river and just kind of float down. So, yeah.
Very cool. Can you talk a little bit more about the guided wine tours on the e-bikes?
Yeah.
Do you have like a set route or set wineries, or you just kind of go where people want to go?
No, we do have we're working on a set route, and I think it's, I could almost say it's official. We'll know this weekend, but we have 3, so it's 4 hours, but we do 3 stops. Oh my gosh, and I'm forgive me, I'm going to need your help on this. The first place we go is Maison.
Maison. Don't ask me to pronounce things,
yes.
But I know what you mean.
Okay.
Oops. Apparently, we are both beyond hopeless with pronunciation, because the winery that we're talking about here is Verizon Vineyards. Thanks to sharp-eared listener Karen for pointing out the error. Now, back to the previously recorded podcast. Just remember, Verizon, Verizon.
Yes, so I'm sorry if you're listening to this. I can never say your name, but they're really great people. And why we stopped there first is they do the whole like wine tasting experience. Maison is really cool with that. They give us the whole, how do you taste wine? How do you know if it's, just all those things. So that's a really cool experience. So then we go from there to Talbot's, and Charles is really great. So they, get their tasting, but then he gives the whole tour of the agricultural side and how they do like their ciders and all that. So it's kind of drink in hand. You get to see the the behind the scenes that a lot of people don't get to see. And then this one's not official, but I'm pretty sure it's going to happen. Clark's, they got the distillery right on the river, so it's kind of a cool place to land where people can get food, because at this point they could be hungry or want a snack. Which I heard Talbot's is actually doing food too, so there might be a couple options. But Clark's is nice, because now we have like mixed drinks involved, so people want to try a cocktail, they can have a cocktail there. And they can also, so Clark's also has a dock on shore off the river now. So then people can see the river and like, hey, tomorrow if you want to get on a paddleboard with us, we can float on by here, or you can float on by here and stop for a cocktail, or you can just be with us and we can float this river that you can now see from Clark. So that's kind of our 1, 2, 3 punch. And then they'll land back here at the sneak line, and we always offer a drink here if they want any more drinks as part of the wine tour.
Nice. Yeah, that's a really nice variety of things.
Yeah.
And what would you, it's a good distance too. What would you say it's about mileage wise?
Probably
Maybe like 6 to 8 maybe?
Yeah, because you're going, it's actually a nice little route, because you go toward,
That's not that bad.
okay, because you go toward town, then you go up on the East Orchard Mesa, and then you get that nice little loop around the river. So it's actually a really cool scenic one too. Yeah, maybe 6, 8 miles. Yeah.
Yeah, and you're on an e-bike too. So
Exactly.
if you want a little assist, you got it, especially going up the hill.
Right, going up 38, yeah, it can be a little, but yeah, we've tried and true, our bikes make it up there, even with the steepness of the hill.
What other events are you planning here in Palisade this season?
We got quite a variety of things. We're going to go back to some of the standards from last year, which was, the open mic. Well, it's not open mic, I should say. It's story night. So the mic's open, and we have a theme, and people come and tell the story based on the theme. So we did that about 3 or 4 times last year, so we'll do that again throughout the season. We have our community floats, which once a month, but those are always popular. One of those will be the Pride Float, which last year I think we had over 50 people. So this year we're bracing for, I think we've already had people calling on that. That's become quite popular, the Pride Float. That's in June.
Okay. And so can people rent if they don't have their own ducky or kayak or something, can they rent here too for the community floats?
We're typically rented out on, so it's like get the gear early so you can have it, because if you don't have it, we can rent it to you as long as we have it in inventory.
Right.
So we'll do so the floats, the story time. We got a couple historical nights that we did last year, bring in the Historical Society and just open our bar, and people they could tell us the stories of Palisade or whatever theme we suggest or they suggest. We have the yoga we've talked about already. We work with Harmony, the animal shelter. I think it's Harmony. Yeah, and we brought them. We'll do like a dog adoption, dog wash day, which was fun. I think we saw like 4 dogs adopted last year, so that was a cool event. And we have a couple other just fundraisers we're still planning. We'll do our bike Palisade, which will be every third Thursday. Not in April, but starting in May, we'll be doing that through the summer. And let's see what I'm missing. And best, I tell people, to stay up to date, just got to follow us on Facebook or Instagram. That's usually where it's the best, Our website doesn't keep up with all that because it's so much of it, but follow us on
you're
Instagram.
good about posting things on Facebook and Instagram.
Yeah, good. Yep. Yeah, that's where you're going to find what we're doing.
Yep.
And then, we're this last year, and we'll continue forward with this. Like, we did a fall festival in October. We had some axe throwing, food trucks. It was a really cool time. And then we did artisan market in December, and then we did like a ski and snowboard wax party in February. So, even though we're closed in the off season, we kind of do an event a month just to keep our name out there and people know that we're still here. Yeah. We're all in it together.
Well, it's also really fun, kind of unique things that you're offering for the community that other people aren't really doing too. So it's cool. Like, you seem to be finding the interesting little niches that other people kind of aren't working on right now.
Yeah, I think it just goes back to we're going to live here. We're local. We want to, I know we live in Steamboat, but we're not trying to be those guys that aren't connected to their community. We want to be connected, and that's the best way to do it is through these events, and so it's been cool.
What are you most excited about for this upcoming season?
Oh man, I think we're just hitting our stride, and this Palisade specifically, just because we're in our third year, got good traction with everything we're doing. We're bringing on, like I said, some new boards, some new events. We got like just a lot of new, there's a new buzz. It seems like people have been talking sooner than in years past. Like, okay, we're ready, we're excited. The e-bikes, I think we're going to see some new traction with that too, because we've been doing it for now. In our wine tours, I've heard from people like they like to do it that way. What we've been doing, just kind of handheld, guided, like we got you. Here's where we're going to take you, and you're going to see some really cool things. And then Pearl Lake, the other thing, we just started a bar there last year, so we have a lakeside bar. So I could work there every day. I'm just sitting on the shore, renting boards, and I think there's a lot of buzz going on right now for what we're doing. I'm excited just to do what I need to do to help out where I need to help out. So I'm expecting a busy summer for myself.
Yeah, I'm excited to get started.
Yeah, right? I mean, the river's going to be amazing too with all the snowpack that we've had building up, and so we should have hopefully a nice maintained river season.
Yeah.
Sorry. Nice maintained river season.
Yeah,
the sounds of the shop.
You're a professional. All right, the last couple of questions are more about Palisade. So what's your favorite thing about the community here in Palisade?
Oh man, I think, it's fun to go to certain places and just see people, from certain walks of life around town, and, be able just to strike up a conversation. They say, as you're shopping or you're out and about, don't plan to, what you think might be a 20-minute stop to the grocery store is going to be probably 45 to an hour because you're going to talk to people. So that's just a mindset that, back in Steamboat years ago, that's kind of what it was. And I miss that. Steamboat's just such a hustle, bustle, and busy. You see people, but everyone's in such a rush now. Here, everyone's still like the slow pace. Anywhere you go, you're going to run into somebody that you or kind of know, but they're so friendly. They're going to talk to you. It's like, hey, aren't you that guy? Or how do I know you? So I just love the community aspect of just the closeness, and everyone's in it. We're all in it together, As these events we've done, I get a good handful of people that come every time, and it's a close knit. So that's one of my favorite things. And just the opportunity of just the many activities that from here you can go into, that you can springboard into, whether it be up on the mesa or on the river right here through town, or going out west. So I just think it really affords anyone who lives here to get outside and do an adventure. So those are probably my top two things I like about Palisade.
Same. If and when you get a day off, what's your favorite thing to do with your time?
Well, I kind of one of those guys that roll from the philosophy of work hard, play hard, and I'm very good at putting, not to pat myself on the back, but putting events on the calendar, even during the summer. I'm a big river rat, obviously, but not always paddleboarding. We have our own raft, and my family and I have done multiple river trips, and so we have a couple already planned this summer where I just well, guys, I'm leaving. Don't burn the ship or don't sink the ship. I'm going to be gone for a week on this trip to whatever river, and so we just love that time with our family and friends to get on the river and just be rowing for a few days, going through whitewater, camping out under the stars. So if I only have an afternoon, or it depends on what the season is. Like in springtime, you'll see me surfing the river wave and Steamboat every day. Which is someday I'm hoping we'll have here. If I can be in the water, I'll be in the water or near the water.
They were going to do a river park here at one point, and it just seemed like too many challenges with the canal and.
Yeah, and there's still gonna be some challenges. I think there's just where they put it is kind of key, and the agriculture industry just needs to be, not convinced, but just be. What am I trying to say? That needs to let them know we're not taking your water. We're just as it's going to your land, as it's going to water your crops. We're just going to surf it as it's passing through, It's like, we're not taking it. It's still going to get to your land and where it needs to go. That's it's got to move from A to B. So as it's moving, I might as well surf it.
Right.
But we just need to have the certain things in place to make it surfable.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, there's so many mountain towns that have proven it to be an effective model and a very profitable model. BV Salida probably the leaders in that, but hasn't hurt anything down there. So, I mean, get a surf wave in a canal, that'd be the easiest thing. It's already constricted. You could just put it'll never happen unless you get somebody who's a big river surfer that owns like a lot of land and agriculture and says, "This is what I do. Make it happen in my canal."
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Anyway, I could talk all day. I'm super passionate about it.
Who would you most like to hear from on a future episode?
Oh, of your show?
Yeah.
Or your podcast? Oh, man. Rondo, Charles over at Talbot's, or Bruce, maybe both those guys. Jeff and Jody, they're doing a lot as far as just talent and positive growth. Then I think Katie over at Delivery, she's a really good friend of ours. She's the bar manager over there, and she's also been super helpful for us. So, yeah, I think those are a lot of people, but there you go. I'm curious what they would all say.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
for
thank
your time.
you.
I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
You were actually one of the first people that I told, like the first few people
I
told about this idea last year.
Oh.
Even like the first time I met you, you just have such a warm and like welcoming attitude.
Well, thank you.
And I'm sure that's why people love to come back here. And
well, that's great. I wonder if my kids would agree on that sometimes. No, I think it's a great idea. I think good on you. I mean, I'm always for the entrepreneurial spirit, and I feel like I've had a few people help me out along the way. Well, not a few, a lot. So it's kind of paying it forward as I go forward, looking for those opportunities and helping out where I can. But
well, I really appreciate it. And cheers to the first podcast, guys.
Yes. Yeah. I can't wait to hear it.
Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you.
If you're looking for something different to do this summer, Paddleboard Adventure Company is a great place to start your search. You can keep up with the latest by following their socials.
Facebook is just Paddleboard Adventure Company Western Slope. I think that's the same for Instagram. And it's also, if you go to our webpage, paddleboardadventurecompany.com, the links to those are there.
Danny and his team are working hard to build their piece of the community here in Palisade. They're a great reminder that community is what you make it. The Postcards from Palisade podcast is available on all major podcast distribution platforms like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Stitcher. Find us and subscribe now so you never miss an episode. We also have a website, postcardsfrompalisade.com, where latest episodes and links to more information are posted. If you're interested in being on the show, or if you have ideas for a future show, I'd love to hear from you. You can reach me at lisa@postcardsfrompalisade.com. Thanks so much for listening. With love, from Palisade.